So I want to express our appreciation for joining us this evening. We're hoping that it's very informative and ultimately it's very effective as far as getting results concerned. Now, what we want to do as part of our overview, we want to talk about tenants' rights. We want to talk about some new housing laws. We also want to emphasize what we have, and it's the only one in the state, is a financial empowerment center. And we've had this for about a year. We've helped hundreds of people improve their credit score, reduce their debt, become first-time home buyers in the city of Patterson. One of my favorite anecdotes is that we've actually helped 4 people stay in their homes as a result of the Financial Empowerment Center. So at the conclusion of this program, I highly encourage anyone who's interested in this service to go back to the table and visit the ladies to find out more about the Financial Empowerment Center, because we can help you. There are individuals that I didn't even know that needed that kind of help. In fact, one of them was a former employee of ours in the city who recently retired. He didn't have a credit card. He didn't have a car. We helped him get a car. We didn't buy the car for him, but with financial empowerment and resources, he got a car. And we helped him get 3 credit cards now. So there's no telling him, there's no shame, it's all confidential. But we're also proud of the fact that not only do we have the only financial empowerment center in the state of New Jersey, but we were the first office of the mayor.
That's true. Who said that? I don't need that. Thank you very much. I can get very valuable. We're the first office of the mayor to have someone inside of our office deal with reentry. We wrote a grant, and thankfully through the Department of Justice, we have a reintegration services coordinator in the city of Patterson. And she's here to help anyone who's been recently released from prison or jail. Connect them to resources, whether it's housing, getting identification, getting employment. And she has a track record of helping individuals, because what she's doing all day in the office is identifying individuals who are about to be released and those who are already out in society. She wants to help those individuals as well. So this is just part of her mission, to provide that assistance for those that are in need. Because quite frankly, when people are released from either prison or jail, it's not as if jobs can fall out of the sky, right, Ruby? It doesn't happen like that. You need somebody who's going to provide that connection, that bridge between you and the job, between you and the housing, between you and the Financial Empowerment Center. So ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I'm proud to present to you our Reintegration Services Coordinator, Valeda Hall. Yeah, you're a mom.
I'm a mom.
Pretend you're talking to Nas. He's right there.
My son's right there. Okay, so I use my mom voice. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Ms. Hall.
I want to thank you all for coming out this evening. I want to give a special thanks to my panel speakers for coming out and speaking on their individual agencies. I really appreciate that. Like the mayor said, I'm the Reentry Services Coordinator. So I assist any resident of Patterson with getting services in the city. I'm a referral-based service, so I partner with all of the nonprofits in the city, so I know where to send the clients to get services. I follow up with those clients and I follow up with those agencies to make sure they get what they need. I felt this event was most important because somebody coming out of incarceration after, let's say, 5 years, a lot has changed since then. A lot of laws have changed, rent prices have changed, eligibility for things have changed, everything has changed. So I kind of wanted to put this together to inform the community and my reentry clients of what's going on, so they get a better understanding of what they have to do in order to obtain housing or put themselves in a position to where they're eligible to get certain housing. And basically I'm there to walk them along the way. I'll be right there by their side. One thing about me is that my passion is reentry. It's my reentry promise. I was born and raised here in Patterson, so I'm a product of this environment. So it is very important to me to be that support, that help, that word of encouragement to our reentry clients because they need it at the end of the day. A lot of people have forgotten about them. A lot of bridges they burned. A lot of things go on. We are all human. But at the end of the day, if I can be that constant for someone to succeed, that's what I'm going to do. And so that's why it was so important for me to put this event together. And I also want to right now go ahead and introduce my co-host, Danielle, who has been with me along my journey as the biggest support that I have outside of the mayor's office. Thank you.
I don't need a microphone at all. I'm not a mom, I'm a professor, and I'm also Italian, so I have a loud voice. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to get rid of that. Like Shalita had said, well, I am from the Passaic County Department of Human Services, not affiliated with the City of Patterson. We cover the City of Patterson. We are invested in the City of Patterson. We're invested in each one of you who are sitting here today, right? And everybody here up in the panelists are one of our preferred partners that the county works with outside of the city level. So it is very important for you guys to utilize your voices, your concerns, right? Because nothing really happens from the high end without the stuff from the low end, right? And that's why we invited you all here today. So I just want to, I have my cards in the back that if anybody wants to, I run a program called Impact to Safe. And we have a task force that's under called Safe Sheltering. Housing is something that's very important to me. It's something that the mayor knows. We met with the mayor a couple of weeks ago. We are at the county level, countywide, we are working very hard to develop not only affordable housing, but housing for the homeless, right? Because if there's not affordable housing, people are homeless. So it all goes hand in hand with one another. My card is in the back if anybody wants to contact me for county services as well. Feel free after to come and see me and I will give you my card and contact information. I just want to go over some housekeeping rules. If you have a cell phone.
Just really quickly, I just wanted to let you guys know also that within the mayor's office with my reentry program, I'm actively in search of funds to create my own, our own housing program for reentry and a jobs program that I'm actively every day working on this so that I can get this passed to the city council so we can actually have some real help with rental assistance and job placements directly, not go to this person, that person, the other person, but directly from me to a job. And I just wanted to let you guys know.
Yeah. You know what? And if I can dovetail on what Danielle was talking about as far as affordable housing is concerned, we are committed to it. In fact, in the last 5 years, we've had 4 projects that are going to equate to nearly 500 units. There are still some units available. At Hinchliffe Stadium, there are the residences up top on Jasper Street. That's for senior citizens 55 or older. So I would highly recommend that you apply if you are interested in affordable housing at Hinchliffe Stadium. We also have grandparents raising grandchildren on Mill Street. That's 75 units. There are going to be affordable housing units available there as well. Now I want to give the Patterson Housing Authority credit. We partnered with them over on 5th Avenue, Riverside Village. That's 261 units for low-income families and for senior citizens. And then we are about to cut the ribbon this Monday on the Barclay Apartments. 56 units. This is innovative. Could be a model for the country to follow. 56 units for people who are struggling with chronic mental and health conditions. So we got to address the fact that people have these mental health issues. So we'll be cutting the ribbon on that, and that's a partnership with St. Joseph's Health and NJCDC. So just know we do have affordable housing available now, and we know that there's more that's needed, and we're going to do what we can to meet the need for affordable housing in Patterson. Thank you. Yeah.
Housekeeping rules. If you have a cell phone, please turn it off. We want to be respectful of our panelists that are here taking their time to speak to us. We want to save all questions for each panelist until after they're done speaking. to be mindful of their time, and also to not speak over other people when they're speaking. There's a lot of different personalities in this room. There's a lot of underlying grievances in this room. We all have our own baggage that we walk around with on a regular basis. Nobody is exempt from that. So just please be respectful of each other's opinions. Okay?
Yeah.
And the bathroom, if anybody has to use the bathroom,
Yes.
you can go right through that door and around.
And there are empanadas in the back
There's food in the
that
back.
Valeda personally made, so.
No, I did
You made
not.
them.
I did
If I
not.
made them, you don't
I
want
got them from Empanada Spot right here, by the gas station.
empanadas to go.
I'm telling you, the cheesesteak. Okay. So, but there's food in the back for everybody, so feel free to kind of go back as you need. There's drinks back there, snacks back there. So
I actually see James Johansson in the back.
yes.
If you or anyone you know is struggling that needs help, James is here. He's out here every Sunday
Yes.
from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. It's a part of our program. It's called the Opioid Response Team.
ORT.
So the ORT is comprised of EMTs, and Ruby Clark is there too. Let's give Ruby a hand. Round of applause. Our girl Ruby. There you go, Ruby. You got a fan club here. You got a recommend? So, EMT in the fire department, police officer, and social workers, nonprofit organizations. We're helping people who are struggling with opioid use disorder. And then we also have Real Fix, where it's a hotline people can call 833 Real Fix, and we can get you medically assisted treatment through a doctor and get you off whatever you're addicted to and connect you with a counselor. So we're doing our best to address some of these ailments that we have here in Patterson. Yes. Danielle's going to introduce the panelists.
Okay. So
Or Valeda Hall is going to introduce the panelists.
I'll introduce our panel speakers, and then we'll go ahead and let them speak. Our first is Ms. Paula Alford from Patterson Housing Authority, who I love so much. We have Ada Ramos, the relocation aide at 120 South Elliston. We have Jaleel Monet, she's our rent leveling personnel. We have Sue Wu, she's from the Northeast New Jersey Legal Services. And everybody knows.
Yes.
I don't even have to announce her. We all love her.
We do.
Lieutenant Easton. And then we have Matt Santos from the Financial Empowerment Center. So each one will speak.
Yes.
So each one will speak, and then after Matt finishes speaking, we'll open it up for any questions that you may have. I put the notebooks and pens on your seats, so you can write down any questions that you may have for now or for later. After listening to them speak. So without further ado,
Thank you so much, and thank you all for taking out your Friday evening to come and be here for this event. Valeda reached out to me some months ago, it was early, it was cold, so it's about January, wanting to do this event. And she came and we discussed with the executive director of housing, who is Irma Gorm, how it is that we could work together and have housing bridge the gap with reentry. And one of the first things that director said to her was, we're going to need to get a whole lot of other people involved because this is not a small mission. This is a big mission. So the Patterson Housing Authority, and I get, I've been a chairperson and really opened myself up to community and have given community a pathway to being able to just communicate their concerns, their needs, questions, and I've learned a lot through it. One of the questions that seems to come through a lot, and it's a great time to educate. A lot of people think when they hear housing that it covers all of housing. Whether you are a private landlord or you live in housing, but housing has a limited scope. Housing addresses low income, but very low income to low income, elderly, people with disabilities, people on Section 8. A lot of times we get the question about homelessness, because as we know, homelessness is really a serious issue. And I don't think people understand the broad scope of that meaning as well. Homeless does not necessarily mean that you're sleeping under the train trestle. Homelessness has levels to it. And I have my vice chair of housing, Jameli Caraballo, and one of my big priorities is home ownership. That's what I came in the door as a commissioner, really feeling like our residents deserve an opportunity of home ownership, because that was something that was at that time, I had just become a homeowner, and it was very hard for me. And that was just something that was my plight. And then my vice chair came on, and her plight was homelessness. So we a lot of times are collaborating together on how can we go at both of these things simultaneously. So to go back when Valeda came to us and we met with her, and wanting to bring other people to the table that, you know, deal with these topics from different angles, right? As a person, you're many slices of yourself. So some slices end up in housing, some slices will end up with human service, relocation and human services, some will end up at the rent leveling, and so on and so on. So being able to come together and have a cohesive discussion with the very people that we serve and the very people that can give us insight to how we can serve them is very important. So again, just to understand what housing does is that our client, our service base is the disabled, it is people of low income, and it is people with disabilities. We have affordable housing, which sometimes I hear people using the sentence with low income housing, and it's important to know those two are different. Affordable housing is looking at your income and your rent being based on your income, whereas low income housing, as I believe HUD sets the low income limits at 80% of the median income for that county, and then very low is 50% of the median income for that county. So if you want to know about qualification, if your family qualifies or you qualify, the first step would be to understand what is the median income for Passaic County, and then you can look and see if you qualify within 80% or 50% of that range. I do want to, if you have a pen and paper, give out my email. It's a dedicated email that is set up just to address resident concerns, and it's P as in Peter, A as in Apple, L as in Larry, F as in Frank, O, R as in Randy, D as in Derek, at Patterson, H as in Harry, A as in Apple.org. And I will get back to you. I will, if you are, again, I want you to understand my scope of being able to assist you is under the umbrella of housing. I've had people contact me that live in private dwellings with a private landlord, and that's out of my scope. We don't govern that situation. We can get sort of creative if you live in a private dwelling with a private landlord and you have one of our vouchers. It may allow us to assist from a different angle. But just again, happy to be here, happy to serve you all as residents. And yes, this is much needed because yes, everybody deserves. I always feel like this. I always have to tell this little story. Before I became a homeowner 2 years ago, I came to become a commissioner fighting for tenants' rights in the building that I lived in. And those things that were happening weren't necessarily happening to me. But if you understand anything about life, it is this. What is happening up the road, and you don't look down and feel that you have to be involved with what's happening down the road, I can promise you it's only a matter of time before it's up the road. So it behooves you to care about your neighbor. It behooves you to care about their experiences and what they're going through. Because if you are not going through it today, I promise you, you will go through it tomorrow. So I want to thank anyone that is in this room that is in public housing. And it has been my pleasure, my absolute pleasure to be your chairperson. Just speaking to things that are coming to light with Ms. Valeda Hall, we have started these conversations about reentry and how housing can assist. And those conversations have happened with our councilwoman Ruby Cotton, with Cory Booker, and as of recent, I just want people to understand that things take time, right? You have conversation. I remember when I first came chairperson, one of the things I was like, we got to do something about home ownership. I want a Section 8 to home ownership program, and at first it was like, we don't know about that. But today, as of June 21st, we had our first kickoff. There will be a Section 8 to home ownership program in this city because people deserve to be homeowners. You know, so tomorrow morning, if you're not doing anything, this part 2 to that is going to be at John F. Kennedy High School. We are partnered with the Bell Foundation and other, okay, there's flyers in the back with NACA. NACA is our partner on making sure this can happen. Patterson Housing Authority has pledged our support and want to see our Section 8 tenants. I believe, ma'am, excuse me, what's your name? You said Ruby. I thought you was. You look like the lady that was at the kickoff, but I don't think it was you. It wasn't you. But we are committed. Vice Chair, myself, our board, and our executive director, who could not be here, we're here representing her, Irma Gorham. We have a collective vision to make sure that the residents in this city, if you want home ownership, you should be able to have home ownership, and we're going to do our part to make sure that happens. So thank you.
You need the email?
Yeah. Can we spell the agenda?
P-A-L.
P as in Peter, A as in Apple, L as in Larry, F as in Frank, O, R as in Randy, D as in Derek, at pattersonha.org. And I say, I want you to understand which scope you should be emailing me for, because a lot of times people have been through 5 or 6 people, and they're emailing me because I'm openly receiving it, but it's out of the scope of what I can do for you, and then they're frustrated. So make sure it's something that is within the realm or the umbrella of the Patterson Housing Authority, and I will assist you.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Shalil Monette. I'm the rent leveling administrator for the City of Patterson Rent Control Office. I feel like a lot of people don't know where to file a complaint when there's a legal increase, and that's primarily what I handle. Those are the type of cases that I handle. So if your rent is going up illegally, and I'm going to go over the percentages, you can come and file a complaint with me, or I can mediate with the property owner and yourselves to try to resolve the issue as best as I can. The legal increases for the City of Patterson is 5%. And by the way, I have information back there, so if you can, write everything down, that's okay, because I brought a lot of brochures, I brought information for all of you. But the legal increases are on 5% for everyone in general, once a year, with a 30-day written notice at the time of the lease renewal. Then there's a 3.5% for seniors. And disabled. So they don't necessarily have to be a senior, but if you're disabled, it's also 3.5% once a year. And then we have the 2.5% also for seniors and disabled. The only difference is the 2.5%, there's an income cap. So if it's a senior living by themselves or a disabled person living by themselves, their income cap has to be $1,000, okay? If it's a senior or a disabled person, let's say the senior has custody of a grandchild, they have a partner, $1,500. The same applies to the disabled person. Those are the 3 increases that are allowed. If the property owner tries to surpass that, you can come and file a complaint with me. And either whether a reimbursement has to take place or I can stop it before it even happens, that'd be even better. I think a lot of the times, and a lot of the cases that I get, people are very afraid to file a complaint because they don't want to start problems. But I can guarantee you, first of all, I never contact the owner right away. I usually come up with a game plan. I usually make sure that the tenant feels comfortable. I go over my little game plan with the tenant, and if they're comfortable with it, that's when I contact the property owner. Okay, but I have to make sure that the property owner doesn't increase the rent on y'all, right? So that's why I need everybody to know you can come to me, you can come and talk to me about it, even if it doesn't have to do with an increase and there's issues going on in the apartment, because the property owner has to be up to code in order to increase the rent. So if your apartment is falling apart and the faucet handle is coming off, no. They have to be up to code and standards in order to increase the rent. Also, there's no vacancy decontrol. I think a lot of the times as property owners that are coming in, they're trying to push our tenants out. They've been here for many, many years, and because they consider their rent so low, they're trying to push them out. But they don't understand that there's no vacancy decontrol. So if I find out that they went ahead and pushed that tenant out just to increase the rent $2,000 and some, they get penalized for that as well. But the trick is to let me know, notify me, because oftentimes I don't find out till maybe a year, 6 months to a year later. So it's important that you all come to me right away, even if you have doubts, if the property owner presents a lease and you're not sure, don't sign it. Don't sign it, read it over, take your time, because that's your right. You don't have to sign it, put your name on anything unless you're sure of it. And it's important to read over the lease carefully because there's little things here and there that are so small and hidden that you're unaware about, like the late fees. If they sneak in an increase that's surpassing the 5, 3.5, or 2.5%, you don't want that, because once you sign that lease, it can complicate things a bit, So, and you don't want to hand over any increase that you don't agree with, because you're also saying, okay, well, I accept. That can complicate things as well, So Section 8, I'm going to talk about the exceptions and what properties are regulated by our office, because not all of them are. And rent control usually regulates properties that are older, built before December 23rd, 1999. Anything after would be considered a new construction. However, for anyone who's living in a new construction, the property owner has to notify the tenants before they move in, so that they can make a decision on whether they want to move into that property or a rent control property. I always recommend for somebody to try to find a rent control property. I know, most of us want the nice luxury end of it or something newer, yes. But it won't be rent control, okay? They do have to notify the tenant, let them know, hey, this property is not rent control. Okay, that way the tenant has the option of accepting it or not. Okay. Now, for those properties that are not under rent control, I will still try to mediate, because I know these property owners nowadays are going up $500, $600, just crazy amounts. Yes, I've seen. Trust me, I've seen. And I'm gonna explain something, because I know a lot of you might be wondering why this is happening. And just last month or two, I was speaking to a mortgage broker who actually explained to me why. Long story and explanation short, it's basically because there's a lot of people who are willing to accept that, or willing to pay that amount. Okay, and that's the problem. I just can't understand. I had a client that came in paying $2,300 for a unit. Doesn't have a pool, the building, doesn't have a gym, doesn't have the luxury amenities that you would find in one of these more, well, financially established towns, okay? $2,300. And I asked her, I said, why would you do that? Why would you accept that amount, And she said, well, because, I can pay it, they have money to pay. But you know what? That creates a problem for our low-income folks. It really does, because then it opens that door, that gateway for it. And if these investors, these property owners, they see, okay, well, this individual is going to pay, well, you know what, I'm going to try and push it and get as many people as I can to pay that amount. And that's a problem. Some of the things I tell my tenants is, look, stick together, fight together. I have a case right now where, the whole building, the owners are trying to go up $500-600. And I told them, oh, listen, reject the increase, okay, stick together, tell your neighbors, if you all stick together, you can win this, but if even one of you accepts that increase, that's just opening the gate there for the owner to keep pushing to try to get those increases. It's a matter of you knowing your rights, fighting back, and saying, no, I'm not going to accept these increases. Okay, so if you're living in a rent-controlled property, again, if the property owner offers you a crazy amount, you have to come to me right away so that I can get either in touch with the owner, come up with a game plan, try to resolve it as quickly as possible. And my office is located at 125 Ellison Street behind City Hall. And my number is in my brochure back there. You'll see it, rent control. So you guys can give me a call anytime you want, or even if you just have a doubt about anything, I will do my best to try to resolve the issue. If I don't have all the answers, I'll try to get some answers or direct you to the appropriate people that can provide those answers for you. The thing is to just let me know, inform me, okay? Thank you.
Good evening, hi. My name is Sue Wu. I'm from Northeast New Jersey Legal Services. I am assistant managing attorney for the housing unit. Our office has 3 locations, one in Patterson, one in Jersey City, and another one in Hackensack to cover 3 counties. So today I'm going to be briefly talking about what your rights are as a tenant and what happens when a landlord files a complaint against you to evict the tenants. So before we get in even to your rights as a tenant, I want to briefly talk about how to find a place to rent. So there are rental referral agencies. What they do is they only provide listing of apartments. These can be found in websites or the newspapers, but they are not actually agents. So they're not gonna, walk you around to show the apartment. It's just providing lists of the apartments. There are real estate agents. You retain them for a fee. Usually they charge a month rent to help you find an apartment or a house. And also you can look them up in the internet website. However, we advise potential tenants to use caution because you never know, what they're claiming is actually valid. So when you find a place to rent, it's illegal in New Jersey for landlords to refuse to accept rent payments to rent housing solely because a tenant will pay the rent with Section 8 voucher or emergency assistance from social services or any kind of other subsidy. So let's say you find an apartment that you want to rent, you contact the landlord and tell them, oh, by the way, I have Section 8 voucher. And the landlord tells you, no, I don't deal with Section 8. That's already a violation of law against discrimination in New Jersey. Landlords can't do that. So you can contact New Jersey Division on Civil Rights about that. But usually landlords are smart. They're not going to outright say it, right? They're going to make up another excuse to reject. But if there's sufficient proof that it's because of the source of the rent payment, you can actually start a complaint against the landlord. What is a lease? So lease is a contract between the landlord and a tenant. It can either be oral or written. So in New Jersey, you don't need a written lease. Oral leases are just as effective, and it has all the valid, rights as a written lease. But make sure you read it carefully if there is a written lease. So lease contains a term, length of time that you're going to rent the place, amount of the rent, security deposit, late charges, attorney's fees, rules and regulations, how you take care of the property, notice about the repairs, disorderly conduct by any tenant, pets, entering tenants unit by the landlord, and renewals and other things. So there are standard boilerplate leases that landlords use a lot. That's like long, page legal document that are multiple pages. And I know it's difficult to read, those fine lines, but it is very important so that you know exactly what you're signing. Landlords can evict tenants for late fees and attorney's fees if the lease that you sign says those are considered part of the rent or they are considered additional rent. So those are magic languages. If it's in the lease, even if you pay all your rent, but the landlord charge late fees, they can still evict you for not paying that. So it's important to read that. Breaking the lease. What if the tenant wants to break the lease and move out earlier? Well, there will be consequences, right? And the lease will usually say, how you can legally break the lease. So that's another reason why you have to read the lease. What is a security deposit? So it's money that landlord gets to keep in case the tenant moves out and owes any money to the landlord for any kind of damages caused in the unit or any kind of rent that was not paid in full. There is something called Security Deposit Act in New Jersey under New Jersey SA 46:8-9-26. I'm going to go over that a little bit more in detail later. So security deposit in New Jersey can never be more than 1.5 times of the monthly rent. So if you try to rent an apartment and the landlord says, oh, I want 3 months security. No, that's not legal. They can't ask anything more than 1.5 months. It can be less, but not more. And if you live in a unit more than a year, the landlord can request additional security deposit because if the rent goes up, they can ask up to 10% of the prior security deposit. So you sign a lease, you're about to move in. Make sure you inspect the property before moving in and make sure that the apartment has a certificate of occupancy from the town. Because if there is no CO, the apartment may be illegal and that causes an issue. Inspect all rooms, ceilings, walls, windows, floors, electricity, heat, basement, smoke detectors, doors, pane, and make a list of what is broken or poor condition, and take photos and videos of the unit when it's empty, not after you put in your furniture. Make sure you take a photo of the empty apartment. And if there are any problems that you notice, try to make a list and get the landlord a promise from the landlord how they plan to fix it. So the tenants move in and something happens during the tenancy and the landlord files an eviction complaint with the landlord-tenant court. So the tenants will get a complaint served, by regular mail to their address. A lot of times, our clients come to our office and say, "Oh, I never received anything. I never received the complaint. I never received the trial, so I missed it, and there's a default judgment." Well, the court does their job, right, by sending those complaints to the proper address, right, and they make sure that those are served, right. So it's in the court's document that it was sent out on such a date, and just saying I never got it, it's usually does not overcome the court's, own record, right, that it was served. So landlords file something called case information statement saying, this is the address, these are the tenants, this is the rent, this is why I'm suing them. Tenant also has to file a form called case information statement. I'm going to show you a sample. The court said you must file it, and I recommend you file it either in paper or online, but even if you don't file it, I didn't see anything horrible happening. After the COVID, the court started a new mediation program called Case Management Conference. That is by Zoom. So it's not front of a judge, but it's front of a court specialist. So you log on to Zoom, the landlord and their attorney appear, you by yourself, or if you have an attorney, appear and try to settle the case in front of a mediator. If the case can be settled, it'll resolve right there and then. If it does not get settled, then it gets scheduled for a trial, in-person trial. When you go, so you receive a postcard saying, oh, you have to come to trial on July 10th by 8:45. It's an in-person trial. You go to the courthouse, right? Check in with the clerk. And the judge walks in and they're gonna show you a video about tenants' rights. And the judge walks in, he's gonna call the calendar. John Smith, Jane Doe, all that. So you answer, tenant is here. After that, everybody's sent out in the hallway to try to mediate the case and settle. If it can be settled, parties can sign a settlement document and file with the court. If you can't settle, then it'll go forward for a trial later in the day. It can be before noon, sometimes it can go after lunch. It all depends on the court docket, how busy they are on that day. This is the tenant case information statement. It's a one-page document. It looks complicated, but it's simple. Basically asking your name, address, where you live, how much is your rent, do you agree with the landlord's claim, or so it's available on the court's website. A lot of things have changed in the landlord-tenant court after the COVID, because as many of you know, there was something called moratorium during COVID. Even if tenants could not pay rent during that time, the court was closed and tenants could not be evicted for the public safety reasons, right? Because, if people were being evicted from their homes, the virus is more likely to spread, so the court said no eviction. But it all ended, right? So it all ended. And the court changed some procedural things. If the tenant wins, whatever the case may be, not paying the rent or, breaking the rules, whatever. If the tenant wins, the case will be dismissed. If the tenant loses, right, the only thing that landlord accomplished from a landlord-tenant court is evicting the tenant. They get to evict the tenant, right? And if the landlord wins, they're gonna request a warrant. It's gonna be posted on tenant's door with a date. you will be locked out by July 30th, right? The lockout cannot happen before 6 business days after a judgment is entered. So even if you went to trial, lost, judge told you you lost, they still have to wait 8 days until the tenant can, be locked out. There are some possible post-judgment reliefs, right? But those are a little technical, so I'm not gonna go into it. There is no self-help lockout in New Jersey. Only a court officer can lock people out after a trial. So the only person who can order tenants to be evicted in New Jersey is the judge, right? No one else can do that. Landlords are not allowed to change the locks themselves. They're not allowed to tell you must leave today and, force you out. They can't do that. It's all illegal. So this is a new law after COVID. So during the COVID period, as long as the tenant apply for rental assistance and file something called self-certification, income self-certification with the DCA, even if they didn't pay rent, they could not be evicted for rent unpaid from March 2020 to December 2021. That has passed already, right? It's been a long time. So if tenants owe any rent from January of 2022, they can be evicted. And to qualify for that protection during the COVID time, it was not for everybody, but it was only for people with under certain income, and these were the qualifications. It had to be either below, for very low income, less than 30% of the area median, low income less than 50%, middle or moderate, anywhere between 50 to 80%. So like I said before, there is no self-help eviction in New Jersey. Landlords must file a complaint and go through the process and get an order from a judge. Yes, the tenant has to move. If the landlord changes the locks, right, or prevents you from entering your own apartment, what can you do? You have to call the police, and they're gonna let you back. If that doesn't work, they should help, right? Right? Yes, you have the confirmation.
I'll talk about that.
Okay. But if that doesn't work for whatever reason, please call us. We will see if we can help. So New Jersey is one of the states that has a lot of protection for tenants. We have a statute called Anti-Eviction Act. It applies to almost everybody except small landlords where there are 3 or less units in a building, like 2-family houses, and the landlord lives in there. Then the act doesn't apply. Because the law feels like, well, if you're owner of a 2-family house, you should have more say in who your tenant is, right? So that's why they give a little more rights to the landlord when it comes to small properties. But anything that's other than those private properties where the landlord lives in the building, tenants have a lot of rights. Even if there's no lease, right? You don't need a lease to be able to continue to rent. New Jersey almost has like a perpetual tenancy. As long as the tenant pays the rent every month, you get to live there for another month. It's a month-to-month tenancy. And landlords can only try to evict tenants when there is a valid legal reason. And anti-eviction statute says what those reasons are. And these are the 18 causes of action for eviction. Number 1 is non-payment of rent. So if you don't pay rent, of course, landlord can try to evict tenants, right? But there are other things like if the tenant committed a disorderly conduct, destroy the property, breach the rules and regulation, breach the lease term, they fail to pay the rent increase, which we, discussed. If the property becomes subject to a violation notice because there is a condition that's not safe, right? Then the tenant may have to leave. If the landlord wants to permanently, retire the building from rental market, they can do that. For reasonable rent changes, habitual late payment, if the tenant continues to pay rent month after month after month, it's actually a valid ground for eviction. If the landlord wants to convert it to a condo or a co-op, or if the landlord said, you know what, I want to move in your unit, and they give proper notice, it's a valid ground to ask the tenant to leave. I mean, they have to prove it, right? If this tenancy unemployment for superintendents, let's say you live in an apartment for free because you're a super of the building, but one day that person gets fired, and the landlord says you must move, that's a valid ground. Drug offenses, any assault, terroristic threats, drug threats, theft of the landlord's property, or conducting any like human trafficking or illegal activities on the property is a basis for eviction. And depending on which, cause of action, there are different requirements as to how many in advance the landlord has to notify the tenant in writing before filing a complaint. And there are, different defenses depending on what is the complaint. For non-payment of rent, unfortunately, the only defense is paying the rent, right? So either you have to pay the rent, or you have to get someone else to pay the rent, like government agencies, social services, Section 8, TRAs, right? So if the tenant is in a difficult position and cannot pay the rent by themselves, the rent still has to be paid. The landlord can't live on water and air, right? They need to pay their taxes, the mortgages, whatever, right? And the law protects their rights too. So the rent has to be paid, period. Other grounds, when we get calls from our clients saying, oh, my landlord wants me out because, I broke the door. We have to do investigation, we evaluate the case. If we think there is some meritorious defense with good evidence, we can represent tenants, right? We do that routinely and raise potential defenses. If we feel that the case really has no meritorious defense, we provide legal advice over the phone or in person. We call the tenant, these are your rights, this is what you can expect to happen at the courthouse. These are the recommendations that we make, and this is what you can expect. So the non-payment of rent, like I said, if a person fails to pay rent, it's a valid ground to evict the tenant, except under the lease or the agreement, the landlord is responsible for the utilities, right? Whether it's electricity, gas, or water. And one day the landlord, compiled a lot of balance on the bill and never paid it, so the utility company threatened, shutting off. Let's say the tenant pays for that utility which the landlord was supposed to pay, then that's a good defense. If the landlord files a non-payment complaint, you can go to the court and show evidence, check payment, and tell the judge, look, I used my rent money to pay PSE&G because landlord didn't pay and they were going to shut it out. That's one of the only kind of defenses where the tenant can actually, continue to stay because they used the rent money for the utilities. But if the lease says the tenant is responsible for utilities, that doesn't work because, it was your responsibility to begin with. Some of the potential defenses for non-payment, we sometimes argue if the landlord wrongfully charged for things that was not supposed to be part of rent, that's possible. A lot of times our clients call us and say, oh, by the way, I found out after 2 years living in this unit that an inspector came one day and told me it's an illegal apartment. Which happens a lot, right? It happens a lot in the basement or attic apartments. And the reason that it's illegal is because of safety reasons. Nobody should be, even the landlord themselves, should not be sleeping in the basement or in the attic unless there is two ingress and egress doors. Because if there's a fire with one door only, where are you gonna, escape, right? So that's the reason why these apartments are illegal, not just for tenants, but for anyone. Nobody should be sleeping in there. So a landlord fails to inform you that it's an illegal apartment, so the tenant, pays the deposit, pays the rent, moves in, lives there for 2 years, and find out it's an illegal apartment. And landlord usually files a complaint against the tenant, right? Like you must vacate either because you didn't pay me rent for 3 months or something like that. Well, so there is something called relocation expense built in the anti-eviction statute. So let's say it's so dangerous the tenant has to move out immediately. Obviously, they're gonna need money, right? So the law says landlord has to pay the tenant relocation expense. That is 6 months of the current rent. However, if the tenant, and they're not allowed to deduct the rent money from that, because you can't legally, landlords are not allowed to charge rent for illegal apartments. However, if the tenant had the benefit of living in there, right? Even if it was illegal, they got to live there, right? So they still have to pay something called use and occupancy fee that is close to rent. So let's say the tenant finds out that the unit is illegal, tenant owes 3 months of rent. They come to us saying, oh, my landlord filed a complaint against me. I want to move, but I want to get that 6 month relocation fee. Obviously, the landlord is going to fight it, right? Because they'll be like, well, you didn't pay me rent for 3 months, like I'm going to deduct it or something like that. So we do get a lot of those cases, and depending on the fact, how much money is involved, we either, like I said, give advice or represent, depending on the, case detail. Rental assistance, this was a program during COVID where a lot of people applied for rental assistance. I think most of the rent money related to COVID has run out, so there's not much money. It's been way too long since COVID kind of ended, but you can still try. You can try Bergen County, and you can try DCA, Department of Community Affairs, if they got any new government funding. I'm going to skip that. Okay, so I'm going to briefly talk about Security Deposit Act. If an owner has a building with more than 10 units, they're required by law to give tenants, when they move in, a written notice saying the money is deposited in a insured money market fund or in a bank, paying variable interest. If it's less than 10 units, the landlord still has to put it in a bank, not insured, but any bank paying prevailing interest rate. So the notice that the tenant must get, it should say name and bank, address of the bank. Number 2, what type of account the security money is held. Number 3, the current interest rate. And number 4, the amount of the deposit. So the landlord has to give this written notice to tenants within 30 days after moving in. A lot of landlords put this information right in the lease, so it's in the lease, so that they could just comply with the requirement. If the landlord does not give the tenant this notice, the tenant has a right to write to the landlord in writing, you never give me that notice, that's required, therefore, I want to use that security deposit for my rent for the next month. You have a right to do that. But that all has to be in writing. You can't just call them up and say, okay? Because you need evidence. Because if the tenant says, oh, I never got that notice, I'm going to use that against my next month rent, right? And then we'll write to the landlord. Landlord is going to file a complaint saying my tenant didn't pay the rent, right? And how would you prove that you actually requested that to be processed? So that has to be in writing. Yes, the notice has to be provided within 30 days of receipt of the deposit. If the landlord changes the bank where the money is, they have to notify you. And at the end of each year, they actually have to pay you the interest, not the security deposit money, but even if it's $7, they're supposed to pay you. If the landlord does not pay you the interest, the law says, well, tenant is entitled to 7% interest on your security deposit. So sometimes when I have clients who say, oh, I never got interest payment over 10 years, we calculate it and claim it against the landlord. Return on the security deposit. Some of our clients call me and say, oh, I'm moving out at the end of July 31st and I want my deposit now because I need the deposit for the next new apartment, which makes sense, right? That would be nice. However, that's not how the law, allows. The law says, because the deposit is for any potential damage claim or unpaid rent, the landlord can actually wait until the tenant vacates, inspect the apartment, and they have 30 days to return that deposit money. So it's not even the day of the move out. Landlord has 30 days to return that deposit and tenants have to wait. And again, when tenants move out, make sure you take photos and videos of the empty apartment so that you can show before and after of the condition of the apartment. Because sometimes after a tenant moves out, landlords files complaints saying, oh, my tenant caused $10,000 of damage in my apartment. You have to defend the case. How would you defend it except, photos and videos, right? Words alone is not going to do it. We had a very bad landlord. He owns this property here and lives in Florida. Never visited the property for like 20 years, right? The tenant, it's a private house. The tenant lived there for 3 years, she vacates, and after that, he files a complaint for $65,000 saying, you literally torn down my house. And how is it possible that a tenant living there for 3 years causes that structural damage of that amount, right? So we represented her, filed an answer, and he was insistent that he's gonna come up here for a trial. Never showed up on the day of the trial, so we won. But things like that does happen, right? So unless you comply by filing the answer and go through the court process, it's risky. Right to safe and decent housing. Anybody who rents an apartment or house has coverage under a warranty of habitability that has to be in a reasonably good condition, right? What is reasonable? It depends. But, common sense wise, most of the things should work as they're supposed to, right? The physical structures must be sound. Heat, hot, cold water, electricity, gas, those should work. The pest, the apartment should be pest free and clean. And there must be security devices against crime. The heat requirements during the winter varies by dates. So let's say tenant has a lot of problems in the apartment. Ask landlord 10,000 times, they never fix anything. What can you do? Well, first of all, tenant has to notify the landlord in writing, either certified mail or email so you can prove. Not once, multiple times, and give the landlord sufficient time. If it's a small, problem and the tenant wants to fix it, let's say for $50 and deduct from the rent, tenants have right to do that. If it's a major problem, tenant can't fix it, but want to make sure the landlord fixes it, they do have a right to withhold the rent, right? Until the landlord files a non-payment complaint and the tenant moves to court with the money that you saved up, right? That's the most important part. You can't just withhold the rent and spend it on something else. You have to save the money and bring it to the courthouse, deposit in the court escrow account, and tell the judge, look judge, my landlord is horrible. I was withholding 6 months of rent, and here is the money, I put it in the court account, give me a hearing about that. And it's called Marini hearing. And the court will accommodate you and then schedule a new hearing. So that's how you deal with the issues. So these are the different programs that we assist clients in all our 3 offices. We recently added another program for disaster, Hurricane Ida. I know it's been almost 2 years because it happened in September 2021, but there are still people who have not fully recovered. If their house was, flooded, they're fighting with the insurance companies, if they're fighting with FEMA, we can provide assistance. So if you know anyone who still has those lingering problems from Ida, ask them to call us. This is our contact information. and I have some materials in the back, flyers and things like that for you. Thank you.
Go on. I'm Lieutenant Sharon Easton, and I'm not here exactly representing the police department. I am going to go over some quick police department. One of the things regarding when a landlord locks you out. A landlord locks you out, turns off the heat, turns out the lights, changes the locks, and you haven't been through court. A landlord cannot do those things. If they do that, you should call the police. And when the police get there, the police is going to tell them he has to let them in. The police officer will stay there until he lets you in. And then they'll do a report, you'll have a report of that. But the second time that the landlord does do that, the landlord can be arrested. The officer may not arrest him, but he can be arrested, okay, if it happens a second time. Like our attorney said, the only way that you can be evicted or locked out is through a court officer. That is the only way, okay? So, I am a housing authority baby. I see some project people in here. I came from the housing projects. That's where I was raised, and that's where I learned how to keep got my first apartment there, lived with my mother, learned how to pay rent, learned how to be a great tenant. Now, over the years and since 2013, I've been a property manager. I've been a property manager for over 31 properties. The thing is that my properties have been properties. They've been in just about every ward except for the 3rd ward and the 6th ward. So that can tell you where my property's been. So it doesn't matter where your property has been, it is how you treat the tenants. The one thing that I found about the city of Patterson, people may say that the city of Patterson, the housing board don't do their job well. They seem to have done it always pretty well when it came to me. Because as soon as my tenants complained about anything, they went to the Board of Health, and the Board of Health got in my behind, and I had to do whatever wasn't right, got right? Because then you would have to go to court. So you can go to the Board of Health. But the key to a whole lot of the things that the attorney talked about, and I'm going to run through, I know it's going to sound like I'm repeating what she said, but the key to it is that you should not rent an apartment. You don't even have to talk to the landlord if he does not have a lead inspection done and have the certificate, a fire inspection done, and a re-rental. All you have to do, as soon as you look at an apartment and you like the apartment, you have to say to that landlord, where's your re-rental certificate? And I only talk about Patterson. I don't know about anywhere else. I'm a born and raised Pattersonian. This is all I know. When you go into an apartment, that apartment has to be newly painted. The windows have to go all the way up, and they can't start to inch down. They have to go up and stay up. Right? You can open the cabinet, it can't be any mouse dookie, it can't be any leaks, the hot water has to work, the cold water has to work, you go in there, you see any mold, anything, because those Patterson inspectors, from my point of view, do their job. They made me go back and redo anything until I learned the method of how it was supposed to be. Then I became a much better landlord. But then you have to be a better tenant. Your tenant rights, let me tell you about our rights and your rights, right? You should treat my apartments like it's your house. You have children, make your children clean up. When you go in an apartment, the apartment does not have roaches, right? The landlord didn't bring the roaches, the landlord didn't bring the mice. You did, right? So you got to remember some of those things that you do as the person, as the landlord, So like let me just go into it. I want to go into it. And like the attorney said, make sure you take pictures soon as you walk in the door. Go into every room, take that video, matter of fact, do a selfie. Every room, click, selfie yourself into those pictures for that apartment that you like. And if I wouldn't Do not rent an apartment if the landlord tell you, I'll fix that once you come in. If you got that, just back on out. I know that some of you may be a little desperate because, you know, you might be sleeping on somebody's sofa. You got 3 kids, they got 2, everybody. But when you get up in there, trust me, when you don't, if that landlord didn't take enough time to spend $100 on that apartment to make sure that you had that rental certificate, then you're gonna have problems. I'm telling you, you're gonna have problems from the door. Again, don't withhold that. But one thing, and maybe she can correct me on this, but be careful with, I'm not gonna pay my rent, you get evicted, right? Say you don't pay your rent, you get evicted, right? But guess what I got? I got your social security number. I'm gonna get a judgment against you, or you're gonna give me my money. All right, I'm just keeping it 100 with you. The other thing, do not destroy my stuff. Oh, you gonna see the real police, not me. I ain't coming, right? The landlord will be able to file charges against you. I've seen people do some ratchet stuff, right? And then now, the housing authority, they looked me up, or rather they told me about the NTN, right? That's the National Tenant Association, whatever, right? So now, all I gotta do is put your name in here, your date of birth, stuff. Now I know everything about you, and it rates you. It's gonna give you a red rate. That's why many of you can't, and I'm not saying you, right? But that's why many people can't get apartments, because that was that old Project Hood stuff that we used to do in the 70s and 80s. All that stuff done changed now, right? Because the youth do not live with the myth. Let me hold on to this money. If you're not gonna pay your rent, the first thing that you're gonna do to get that landlord is you're gonna go right down to the landlord tenant and go put that money in an escrow account, so that you won't touch it. I've had tenants tell me they're not gonna pay rent because they get ready to have a party for their 1-year-old. Well, guess what? They have a birthday every month, every year. Your kid have a, so I don't want to hear that. A tenant, a landlord, and because what Ms. Alfred said, we want y'all to become homeowners. And the good thing about NACA, you can become a homeowner. I had a tenant that became a homeowner. She brought her a nice little house on Richmond Ave, off of her Section 8, and her children's, one of her kids had disabilities, but she has a nice little house there. But the thought is you don't want anything to affect it, and you can't get a 2-family house. So you don't get the opportunity to see how it feels to have a tenant. Now, if everywhere you move into, you act like it's yours, you are going to be okay. The other thing, watch your friends. I don't know if it was up there, but watch your friends and your visitors. Because you let rah-rah come by your house, sometime don't mean when you ain't home, rah-rah can hang out in front of your home. We have that problem now. I find that the rah-rahs are intimidated to the women, especially to the women or the residents that live in developments that have more than 3 apartments. So you and your boyfriend, don't allow your boyfriend to move in. Now, make sure also, I don't think that the attorney discussed it, especially if there's any landlords or even you. Okay, weed is legal, but it ain't for everybody. I don't want to get high, right? I live on the 3rd floor, so you got to be considerate. The housing board release said you can't even smoke in their apartment. So be careful about, and the other thing, because weed legal don't mean you can start growing it for yourself. All right, because I seen that too. You go up there, they got the little, got plants and stuff all in the house. You have to be careful of all I don't want to quote that, but it is what it is, the hoodness that I've seen. So give you an example. I just got into property management by accident. And make sure your property management company have their real estate license, because they're not supposed to collect rent unless they have a license. Hope I ain't telling too much, but that's what they supposed to have, right? Now, I was getting ready to say something. Now, you have to make sure, who was my train of thought? Let me see what the landlords. Don't make those Section 8 deals. Please, and let me tell you what the Section 8 deal is, right? Your Section 8 is $1,100, your portion is $50. Your landlord is so happy. I tell the landlord, don't get so happy that you get $11.50 and then you let her slide. You can't let that family slide not one time with that $50. You owe me $50. I am going to evict you for my $50 because your mindset might think, oh, you know, it's just $50. Nope, you're leaving. You're leaving. But the other introduction, even though she said that about the 5%, but you can go into that landlord, once he gets you out, I can rent it to you for $2,200 and then go up to the 5%. You understand? Or the landlord with me, I can do 2%, 2%, 2%, then 5%, and like you said, and then don't get into the thinking that what it is, the interest rate. You know, we had a tenant that had the interest rate. She said, you owe me $20,000. No, your interest rate was only 2%, right? So if your rent is $1,400 a month, 2% might be, I'm playing with the numbers, might be $14. The interest rate might be really something that's a little bit of money, right? So they may compensate you with a gift or a little check or something off of your rent. So those are the things that you should be wary of. Always get a receipt. Or I don't care, I like the way Judge Munoz said, put it on a piece of toilet tissue, right? Put it on the toilet tissue, get that phone, always get a receipt, and always, just like with your children's birth certificates and all that, always have a file for your rent and your rent receipts. Always have that, because something's going to come out. Don't just take it willy-nilly and throw it. No, they know, that they know. Keep a receipt of your rents. The other thing to get you kicked out of your apartments, cussing and threatening the landlord. This ain't the council meeting, y'all. You ain't gonna cuss at me. You ain't gonna threaten me. Bye. You can't do that to anybody. Right? So those are the things that's going to get you evicted out of the apartment. And keeping the apartment clean. The other thing that you all should do, you all should get rental insurance. You can't move into any properties that I have, you can't move into it without having rental insurance. It's the best bet for you to get rental insurance. And you're only talking about something that may be $97 to $100 a year, right? Now, this is a fun thing. I don't own any more properties. We got rid of those properties a long time ago. So that's a good thing. But I did have 31 properties here in Patterson. My clients were from Canada and Florida. If any of you decide that you are any landlords in here, you should get a property manager so that they can help better manage the property. I don't have anything. I said the rental. Okay. And like she said, also the paying for repairs. Now, you don't have to pay if your kid punched the door. Right? You have to pay for certain things that when we go in there, this is not over time, 5 years, the door, if you got boys, if anybody in here got sons, let them learn how to fix a loose doorknob. Let them learn how your kid cannot put the apple, the ball in the toilet, and then you say it's on the landlord. Those certain things is just not. It's things that's going to be on you as that tenant. So you have to be careful. You do have rights, and I think a landlord would love you to be there. But if he or she is having problems, loud music, treat the other tenants and the people on that neighborhood with respect. The biggest problems that we have, you cannot cook your pork on the outside of the house, and because it's summertime, decide to put the boom box on top. You have to respect the people on your block and your neighborhood and make sure that your children do that. And allow your friends, don't let your house be the only party house. Allow your other friends, let's go to their house sometime and party. So those are some of the reasons, some of the complaints. A landlord, what I can tell you as a property manager, All they want is their rent money, so they can pay that insurance. So that insurance, that sewer bill, those taxes, that's all that landlord wants. So if you're doing those things on time, you won't have no problems. Now, if the landlord giving you problems, in my head, it might be, like she said, either they want you out, it's only two reasons. They want you out, or they're getting a lot of complaints about you. Those are only really the two reasons that the landlord wants you out. They want to get in there. But other than that, just treat your community, your neighborhood, and if you treat that, your community, the neighborhood, and your apartment like you want to be treated, you won't ever get evicted. I never was, and I never was late in all the time. I just became a homeowner only 10 years ago, and I never been late one time with rent, never one time, even before I became a police officer. Thank you.
For tomorrow's event. It's a big event. If you have any interest in becoming a homeowner or just thinking about it, you definitely should come to it. You definitely should come to it tomorrow morning. Actually, at 8 o'clock. At 8 o'clock, Kennedy High School.
The CFE Fund partners with dozens of local governments to offer its professional features, often integrated with other municipal social services, housing and foreclosure prevention services, workforce development, prisoner reentry, and benefits access, including those services outcomes. In fact, Public's financial balance and model pages on employment study people are in trouble with their finances. They open their website. They need to be able to sit down and one-on-one with professional financial counselors. If cities and counties will invest in services that local leaders can step in front of the public and advertise, then they need to be on quality. The financial counseling field is really professionalizing, and we've seen over the last years people's expectations rise and grow. Fed Public has served over 104,000 clients, helping residents reduce debt by over $146 million and increase savings by more than $22 million. The CFE Fund, along with Google Philanthropies and others, is excited to invite new partners to join us.
Hi, hello everyone. Good afternoon. Buenas tardes para los que hablan español. My name is Mas. I'm the Financial Empowerment Center Program Director. And now I'm going to illustrate to you what is Financial Empowerment Center. I know that I have at least a client here, the Power Program, and I'm happy of that. But let's talk about Financial Empowerment Center. We call AFEC, okay? AFEC stands for Financial Empowerment Center. And we are the only one in New Jersey State, the only one program that was created to help moderate and low-income people that are dealing with financial issues. What does mean? What does mean? Go back, please. What that mean? We can assist you in terms of make a plan for the future. Yeah, that is about Financial Empowerment Center. Why? Because to make a plan for the future, you need to take care of many situations in your life. The number one is financial. In terms of credit, because if you don't have, let's say, a standard credit score or a good credit score that is much better, you are going to miss many opportunities. Okay, one of those opportunities is the possibility to rent a house, because you know that your lenders can check your credit report. You can miss some opportunities like get a good job, because your employees, before to present a formal offer, are allowed to check your credit report. So, who is the person that is going to check his or her credit report every day is difficult, right? Why? Because anytime you check your credit report, you get a hard inquiry, and your credit, good or bad, or a standard, whatever it is going to decrease. So that is a problem. But we never consider that before to do things, we have to be aware what is our credit score. Now, it's very common to download applications like Credit Karma, Credit Values, the applications from the bank, okay, and we go there thinking that that information is accurate. It's not. Because they are intermediators that collect information from many databases, and let's process that information with an algorithm that is going to provide probably your probability credit score. So, let me tell you something. You don't have to do that anymore, because in the Financial Empowerment Center, we are licensed, Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, and we are able to pull your credit report every day, making a soft pulling, and your credit score will never be affected. What is the goal? What is the goal in the Financial Empowerment Center? The goal is individualized service, one-on-one. Number one, confidential. We don't share information with anyone. No share information. We are not immigration department, we are not IRS, we don't have to deal with any institution. So whatever is immigration status, whatever is the situation, you are more than welcome to come to the Financial Empowerment Center. This is a public service because this program belongs to the city of Patterson. FEC is Patterson Financial Empowerment Center. The city of Patterson got the grant to provide those services for free. That's why Financial Empowerment Center is a public service for you whenever you want. It doesn't matter how many times you need to come to us, okay, you are welcome anytime. And there's something that is very, very interesting. All our data, because we are data rich, we have information of your banks, and, IT, social security, is completely protected. 100% protected. In the Financial Empowerment Center, we have a team of counselors because it's not easy to become a counselor in the Financial Empowerment Center. We are licensed for the one organization that was the creator of the idea of the Financial Empowerment Center, and is the only one organization that can issue that license. Why? Because the training is provided. We are talking about 3 months of training. Training that include poverty context, financial topics, how to fight against, for example, to collection agencies, how to fight against to credit bureaus, because they are not our friend, and coaching skill, because we are not just number in the Financial Empowerment Center. We are more than that. We are your counselors, tax counselors, banking counselors, domestic violence counselor, addictions counselor, family problem counselors, and first-time homebuyer counselors. Here we have an illustration of some of our services, the services that we are providing for free free, confidential, and a one-on-one session. For example, open affordable bank accounts. What that means bank accounts that you can find only in the Financial Empowerment Center because we belong to the bigger, or I would say the biggest national networking, bank networking. That networking is Bancom, and all the accounts that we are providing to the communities are for free. No fees, no minimum balance, nothing. And you can open your accounts, guys, in our office. You don't have to go to the bank because we are connected. Or we can open your accounts from our laptops. You don't have to accommodate you. You just have to provide the information where you want to receive your credit cards, your debit cards, your bank account information, and voila, it's done. Credit reports, as I mentioned before, credit builder, because there's people that they don't have credit. For what reason? The reason is a number. The number is 9002. Because for whatever reason, they didn't have credit activity in certain time frame. And there are some tools that we have in the Financial Empowerment Center that you can use to build your credit. Identity theft. Incredible. Nowadays it's terrible. There's a lot of people, many cases that we have at the Financial Empowerment Center with people that had seen their identity stolen. This is so sad. But we have to run to fix the situation, but we can prevent as well. How? With identity protection is something that we can do. There are many things that we can do, okay, just to protect our identity. Legal referrals for cases such as alimony and child support, something that affects a high percentage of the population right now, especially people that were released from prison, jails, whatever situation it is. Unfortunately, without any information, misinformation is really, really very bad because prevent people to make the right choices. Money management and budgeting. You need to know if what you are spending every week, bi-weekly, or every month is in balance with what you are getting. And we can help with that. Consumer rights and debt collection is really, really fun when we connect with your credit reports, go through item by item, and we are able to push the credit bureaus to remove whatever mistaken or wrong information they are reporting. Let me make an example. Now, medical bills. You know, or I don't know if everybody here knows, that the credit bureaus right now, they cannot report medical bills that are higher $500 in your, less than $500. But they continue doing that and destroying your credit. So we have to work for that, for a way that that institutions do what they have to, not just be focused only in business. Bankruptcy referral, planning for retirement, insurance and public benefits, and home ownership and mortgage referrals. Before to talk about homeowners, I would like to know that there's a still, in place a program from the New Jersey state, and we have access, that is helping people that is behind with mortgages. Whoever wants to know more about that just have to visit us in the Financial Empowerment Center, schedule your appointment, and we can talk more about that. But there's a lot of help. Okay, now the question is, are you ready to become a homeowner in Patterson? Here, who wants to become a homeowner? American Dream. Hi guys, good, well done. Okay, I have a volunteer. To be ready to become a homeowner, in Patterson and whenever, you have to be prepared in terms of credit, in terms of savings, because savings is important, even if there are many programs right now that can help with the down payment. Savings are important because savings are the funds that we have to have for emergency, to change the furniture, to move out, so savings are important. You have to be prepared in terms of credit. There's a lot of people that say, no, now there are some mortgages that we don't need credit, for bad credit, for not credit, for people that never had credit. It's partially true, but how much you have to pay for? That is the question, number one. Because mortgages for the banks are instrument to make money. The bank deliver the mortgage, and they resell your mortgage to another bank, to another institutions. So this is the question. Your mortgages is based on your credit score that is 790. Mine is based in my credit score that is 300. Who do you think an institution is going to be willing to pay more for her mortgage or for my mortgage? Sure, for your mortgage, because of your credit. So there are many nuances behind the story of the mortgages, the story of the programs, and whatever. We can provide information and education in terms of products, mortgages, home buyers, fees, percentage, whatever information you need, to start planning to become a first-time home buyer. We are ready to provide it to you in the office. Type of mortgage as well, and there's something that is the new, that we have already open. It's a DPA program, it's a down payment assistance program through one of our partners that is a non-profit organization that is granting Patterson citizens, residents, up to $30,000 if they meet the requirement to buy a house. That amount is not going to give to the buyer, it's going to give directly to the bank that is negotiating your mortgage in order that your principal is going to be reduced and by consequence your monthly payments. Because it's stopped to be a struggle with monthly payments that we cannot afford. It's stopped to be a struggle working 7 years a week because a mortgage, we need to have $100 to share some good time with our family because what is most important is the quality of life. Please think about that. Financial Empowerment Center, 13.5 Bank Holding, Here we have the flyers, scheduling appointment because we have just appointment in person, virtual, and over the phone. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for your patience. Have a good night.
Thank you to all my panelists. I want to open the floor up. I know it's been a couple hours of talking and PowerPoints, but I want to open the floor up for any questions anybody may have specific to their own situation. While we have our panelists here, we might as well ask them directly.
So legal service, my parents are not able to use email as easy, but I want to know if sending a voice note to the homeowner counts as one more time saying I need you to fix this, I need you to fix this. Does a voicemail through WhatsApp count as, I guess, as evidence if my parents, since they're older, are not really good at writing an email saying we need you to change this, we need you to fix this?
Yes, it's possible to just, call and tell them, but I suggest your parents get some help to actually write a letter and send by certified mail, because it's difficult to submit voice messages as evidence, for a trial. That's possible, right? But even for the court to accept any kind of other than document evidence, like videos, it's a lot more cumbersome, right? So it doesn't have to be in a fancy letter. It can be handwritten letter. Just make sure it's address to the landlord. Write your parents' name. This is what I need. Number one, the leak on the ceiling. Number two, water, leaking, whatever. Send it by certified mail, and that's all you need. They don't have to use it. But I strongly recommend a written request.
Also, too, don't get confused with what you see on TV.
Don't get confused what you see on TV in terms of like Judge Munoz or those people there, because as the attorney said, if the judge, they have maybe 50, 60 cases. They're not. Like even your paperwork, unless you have like maybe an attorney, the judge only want to hear you got the rent or you don't got the rent. I'm sorry just to tell you, I mean it might have changed since COVID. So even with your parents, even the voicemail, it's not like TV. Then the judge is not going to listen to it at all. I tried.
My question is, so you see how you said going to the housing authority and like the inspection and going to inspect them, is that like, that's the proof to show the judge too when they take you to court that they haven't been doing what they're supposed to do, right?
Well, if you newly moved in a place, you should have a re-rental. Now, I know that I don't know about big housing or
I don't know about the 10, the over 20, 100 units. I know 16 units and below, you have to have a re-rental. And the re-rental within it, you have to prove to the city of Patterson that you had a lead inspection, whether it has lead or not have lead. It's supposed to that, and that you have a fire inspection that has your fire extinguishers a certain size. It can't be the little fire extinguishers like this. Has to be a certain size. Your carbon monoxide and your what are the fire the smoke detectors are in certain places. So that's what that re-rental proves. So they have to have that, and the judge will hear that, and the judge will also hear what she says about the 5% rent. There's certain things that the judge will hear about, but the voicemails and a lot of other the videos, the judge may not unless you get a private session, and that can happen.
Also help people that would want to rent to own houses. Do y'all do any of that? Help people with that wants to rent to own. Do y'all help with that? Y'all do? Okay, that was my question.
Just schedule an appointment, okay? So one of the counselors
Right.
is going to go deeper into
Okay,
this.
yeah, I will, thank you. I also have another question. I know somebody that got $100 raise on their rent, and they already paying $1,200 for the studio, and they went up to $1,300 on them. It's due by August. So what should I tell this person?
A call or come down to see me because I normally need a little bit more details and when it occurred, if they submitted pay, all these kinds of things. So just let them know and come down and see me. I'll make sure that they can take their time, they can talk to me. That way, like I said, I can plan something out to prevent the increase or a reimbursement or whatever the case may be.
And also that person, with one of the locks is broken, and I told that person they should have never moved in there like that. They won't fix nothing. The apartment, it's like they never did anything to it. You're missing a doorknob on the closet, the bathroom. I told that person, I'm gonna tell them to go down to home improvement. Also, I told that person. Because I have to do that to a landlord.
I promise you, I know they showed up on me, so I know they'll show up.
But I want to tell you, this is why I said that.
Right.
They're not allowed to increase the rent if there's a code violation.
It's a lot of violations.
So, yeah, right, they're not.
Fire extinguisher hasn't been replaced since 2017.
That's horrible. That's why, tell her to come down, talk to me. Yeah.
Now, when you call the city, they have 10 days to make those repairs. So just let her know that she can't do that. And also in terms of your credit, a lot of us back in have had bad credit. The good thing about bad credit, it can be repaired. Over time, it can be repaired. So don't get afraid when somebody says, oh, your credit might be 500, it might be 400, but in 2-3 years of working with the housing authority, your credit can go all the way up to 600. So when you hear people talk about bad credit, don't be afraid because I'm trust you. All of us up here maybe at one point was a little late on that Macy bill, all right?
Back up what Sharon said, true testimony. When I first started looking for a house, my credit was a 550. 550, I had no money because I thought I was just going to use the down payment assistance. It went a whole nother direction, but again, through the process, I got with a very good lender who helped me build my credit. And through that building, I understand how to take care of it, as opposed to somebody just flipping the switch. He taught me and nurtured it to where it's in, the mid-700s now. So I'm just saying, like, just what Sharon said, we all had a start. So it's nothing to be ashamed of. What you should be ashamed of is not being in a room like this, reaching out to people that can help.
I'm being honest with you. I'm transparent. I was super hood. I never wanted to leave the projects. I'm being honest with you. I ain't had to pay no PSE&G, right? The water was cold and hot. It was good. And I was really, literally afraid to become a homeowner. And luckily, I got the opportunity, like this young man, I got an opportunity to rent a home. And I was scared because I never paid PSE&G. When you went to the housing project, you never paid that. I didn't know what a bill, I didn't know it existed, right? And I'm telling you, see, I've been working a long time and was scared. I've always wanted somebody over my head. But you can do it. And I've only been a homeowner for 10 years. And it's one of the best moves I've ever made. So don't be afraid to try it. I don't care what your circumstances is. Do not be afraid to try it.
I speak to dealing with the situation on Carroll Street, the building, 43 Carroll. We have 13 units in the building and the landlord trying to buy all the tenants out with $1,000. And he locked us in the building today with a steel door. They said for an empty building, all the tenants was locked in the building, so we had to call the fire marshals, we had to call the police, the firefighters had to get us out the building because we was locked in the back and they thought the building was empty, but there was 6 families left. He done paid everybody else to go out the building, but there's people there that's sickly, oxygen machines. And then he's telling people to rush people out the building. He wants to give them $1,000 to leave. And then people leave, they don't have nowhere to go because we don't have Section 8.
Day is Friday. I would tell the boy.
To be honest with you, I would go, the 6 tenants, y'all band together. I would see the legal services here. I would take all our rent money.
Nothing is working. We've had every inspector there.
No, but listen, you haven't had the lawyer and you haven't been down to the court.
Yes, they did. He illegally filed papers, had someone to go down there to be heard, and another tenant. Sheriff Department served them with eviction papers. I said, go do an order to show cause. They went and did that stay all day. They saw the judge gave them another date for the 27th of June. They went to court the 27th of June. We don't have you on the calendar. And they had the papers from the court. They had them go up and downstairs. They saw the judge who gave them another date for July 18th. Nothing is being done. Nothing. They turned the water on.
News 12.
For July 18th, have you called legal services?
I did when the hot water got turned on. I called the house.
So you have a hearing coming up on July 18th, whether you can stay in the apartment or not.
No, yeah, for eviction.
Correct?
Yeah. You want everybody out the building.
But have you called legal services to see if you can get representation? Because I can't really give you legal advice now, like I said, because you know we have to screen applications and all that. But it sounds like you can use legal help. So definitely call our office. We'll look into it. You know, one of the things that people don't realize is just because landlord makes accusations, threats, you know, try to buy them out, you don't have to comply. Tenants have a right to stay in the apartment until the judge tells otherwise, right?
Who wants to stay?
But
They have rats.
if you go to the hearing on the 18th and the judge tells you for whatever reason, then that's a problem. So that's where you need a lawyer's help to see if the landlord has a valid claim against you to evict you. But tenants have right to hold on to their apartments. They don't have to voluntarily give it up.
It's the new management. The new management, the old landlord, they said they passed away. So we don't have no papers of the old tenants that was there.
Right.
So the new management didn't give nobody no more leases to certify the leases. So he buying everybody out so he can raise the rent.
Right. So it happened, we've seen it happening a lot in Patterson because I think there is obviously an effort to develop a certain area of the city, right? Developers come in, they buy a big chunk of land, they want to evict the current tenants, you know, renovate it, rent their higher rent. It's been going on, unfortunately, a lot. But tenants do have right to stay, right? Like I said, so please call our office, see if, you know, we can provide assistance. And help, and, you know, tell your neighbors, they can call us to reach out to different organizations, because you guys are not.
Also, since you, the first time they did that, that was terrible with a lot residents in. The police should do a report on that. You should make sure one, and if he does it again, but you should call for a supervisor to come. And when the supervisor does come, for them to do the report, they have to advise them that they cannot do it. The only one can do it is a court order individual, or court order officer. And if it happens again, the officers can advise them that they will be locked up. Okay? That they can be locked up. All right?
I just want to tell y'all, just hang on to your unit. Do not accept the buyout money because the rents out there are crazy. And that's exactly what this new homeowner wants, that this investor. They're not going to live in that property. They're just trying to make that money. Hang on to your unit. That's exactly what they want us to buy y'all out. Okay? Leave the property in this bad condition like that so that you guys can get fed up. Don't do it. Hang on to that.
Right.
Hang on. Hang on to that unit. I know. And band together, like our officer said, like our attorney saying, band together, because if you stick together, that way you can win this case. Don't tell your neighbors, because I find that a lot of the times there's a building and our neighbors, you don't want to go to your neighbor and say nothing or even ask. No, let each other know. Try to fight together. I know, just don't tell them not to accept that buyout.
But listen, when rats start taking over, I'm not talking
And
about
also, too,
rats. All in the hallway, everywhere. I bought stuff for the rats. Out of my home for that.
Hello. I would like to know who could I speak with about being homeless? Homeless.
I can help. So, I don't know if you were here earlier. My name is Danielle Patillo. I'm from the State County Department of Human Services. Have you called 211? Are you on the housing priority list?